exiting the building.
Bob Lee quietly, though, is like the coolest dude in the building. Like, and I mean, like, you know, like a Lou Rawls kind of cool. Like, he's with a bunch of like, yeah, man. And then we're talking about this. Like, you can imagine Bob Lee like snapping his fingers. Y'all don't know that about him.
I have only had good interactions with him. I wish him the best. He is a legend, a true legend.
All he did was like help me get a career going. Thanks, Bob.
By the way, thanks for that, Bob. I appreciate it. But our first name is Jimmy Butler. Bomani. Our Adrian Wojnarowski reports that the space racing Rockets plan to recruit Butler to join James Harden and Chris Paul. Houston would need a sign and trade with the Sixers due to all sorts of cap reasons, but the biggest worry might, of course, be chemistry. Unless you're PJ Tucker, who also told Sam Amick, quote, if we win a championship together and we bleeping hate each other, then guess what? Who cares? End quote. Bo is adding Jimmy Butler to that particular locker room a good idea.
Ask me that again. Ask me that again. Why are we presenting this as though, who thinks this is a good idea? Who is the person that looks at what's going on there and is like, you know what they need? They need Jimmy. They need Jimmy Butler to come in here and add his say on things, while Chris Paul, who came in with his say on things, that ain't working because dealing with James Harden is really, really difficult. No, this is a horrific idea. This is what you tell people when you, general manager, have an owner who's saying, win a championship or you might lose your job.
Daryl Morey is going through it right now, man. He seems desperate. He looks desperate. He has a beard that reeks of desperation, and I am sympathetic to him because his job is clearly on the line. He needs to produce more than what he's produced the last 2 years. And by the way, the last 2 years involved a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals, followed by the best record after the All-Star break, but none of that is enough to satisfy his owner or the critics. And so what do? You go and try and add some more talent. Scarcity of talent is the rule of thumb in the league, except this talent in particular would be like adding an accelerant to a giant fire.
Yeah, no, I like Jimmy Butler a lot as a player. I actually like Jimmy Butler a lot as the construction of Jimmy Butler. I don't mind the idea of him coming in and shaking the table. But you shake that table they got in there, that thing gonna break. That table is not built for any more shaking to be done. I also don't believe for a second that this is actually going to happen. I will be floored if Jimmy Butler is not right back with the Philadelphia 76ers for the max contract that they can offer him. This one kind of makes sense because Jimmy is from Tomball, Texas, which is outside of Houston, but you have to understand, Jimmy Butler does not introduce himself as being a dude from Houston, a dude from outside of Houston. He does not view the city in that way, right? So if you're viewing this being like, wait, he's from there, that ain't really the wiring on this dude.
Yeah, in the metaphor of them, like Chris Paul being the backseat driver, James Harden being the driver, is Jimmy Butler going to sit in that back middle seat? Is that where he ends up? Because that is just a non-starter. But everybody around, I think, the Rockets, who has nothing invested in the Rockets, would love for this to happen because it would be the ultimate in soap opera. Except Daryl Morey has some optimism about how this all might play out. Let's watch.
I think we're going to have our starting five plus a top level, mid-level. That, maybe we'll do better than that, and we're going to be the favorites in the West for sure. I mean, we were the best team down the stretch with that group, and that's without adding one more quality player like we're going to do. So most teams are scrambling to keep their starting unit together. We got ours going into next year.
And that's the weird part, is that they are actually still a contender. They'd be a contender with Jimmy. They'd be a contender without him. The only issue is the downside on the chemistry experiment. Like, the floor just gets so much lower, as much as the ceiling would raise.
Chris Paul doesn't seem to think this can work, right? Like, if this was simply a matter of Chris Paul just being like, I don't like James Harden, you can maneuver through that sort of situation. Like that Shaq and Kobe, they didn't like each other, but they knew they could make it work. I don't think Chris Paul believes it's possible for it to work, and I don't know what you do if that's the case. Up next, Andre Iguodala, who just last week told Pablo and me in the office he couldn't come on our show until he was out of the NBA because he had a lot to say.
Yep.
Then he went on the Breakfast Club and he said a lot. Let's start with the basketball-related stuff, like Andre Iguodala explaining why there might be questions about how hurt Kevin Durant was in the NBA Finals, using his own experience as an example.
Last year happened to me. I missed the last 3 games of the Houston series. It goes to Game 7. We barely get out of that series. And now they're looking at me like, when you coming back? And I had a fractured leg. But it's being put out there like he got a bone bruise. I'm like, no, it's fractured. So I'm fighting with the team. I'm fighting with people. I'm fighting with the media. And then my teammates ask me every day, how you feeling? How you feeling?
Warriors say no injury report goes out without the players signing off on it. Pablo, what do you make of what Iguodala had to say?
This is strange because there is some exoneration on the Warriors' part, because the person who was in charge, the director of sports medicine and performance during the 2018 playoffs, is not who the director of sports performance and medicine was during this postseason. They actually changed people from Chelsea Lane to Rick Celebrini. Celebrini was the KD disaster guy. Chelsea Lane was the Andre thing. So to me, this is more about the title itself, like director of sports medicine and performance. Medicine and performance can be in conflict. The point is, they're dealing with a team and a reality in sports where you don't always have the best interests of your health in mind when it comes to the people treating you.
Yeah, but see, I don't think that's what's going on here, because I didn't feel like Iguodala was saying that he was misdiagnosed. I think he said that the information that was put out there was not the same as what the injury was. And that's when you start getting all this sports gamesmanship. Like, do you want people to know he has a broken leg, or do you prefer it be out there that it's a bone bruise, right? Like, if you believe the other team is going to prey upon some sort of weakness that you have, right? So I'm very careful to be like he's saying the Warriors lied about this. That's why when the Warriors are like, the player has to sign off on it, that doesn't seem to me to be the Warriors saying, hey, we didn't misdiagnose him, as much as he was in on this same con that we were running. But the problem is that con then gets to everybody else, and your players around you are like, hey, we don't know how hurt you are. And it's funny when it gets to that Kevin Durant part, because he seems to be saying, we weren't sure how hurt he was. We weren't saying that, because if he's saying that the guys were asking him about that, what's he then saying they were asking Kevin Durant?
Well, that's my question is, were the players aware at all that this is how the game is run? Because this happens in football all the time. I didn't realize it happened in basketball like this, because it would seem to be a protection of the team interest, except that if the players around you are like actually wondering, are you telling the truth? That seems to be a very counterproductive approach to managing injury.
Yeah, well, one thing I wish he hadn't said it in this setting, and this is, the Breakfast Club is cool, but that's not, like, they don't do the stuff that we do, right? And so they don't hear that and think to themselves, well, hold on, these are the follow-up questions that we need to ask, because a lot of this is still gray about what exactly, did he find out on his own that he had a fracture? Did the Warriors tell him that he had a fracture? If he found out he had a fracture, did he tell them and there was some measure of conflict? Like, I just don't know what exactly that means, but I do take this right back to Kevin Durant there. Wow, it must have been rough to be him while all of this was going on. Like, to have the questions that seem to surround him at a time where he's like, dude, I'm Kevin Durant. I play basketball all the time if I can.
Right. And meanwhile, by the way, Andre does have all of these takes. He's talking about how in Golden State, they have priced out all of the real fans, which I assume his owner, Joe Lacob, doesn't love, except Joe Lacob is literally moving the team from Oakland to San Francisco. So is that a big deal? Do the Warriors brass care about that?
Hell no, they want these people with all this money to know. We have priced out the real fans. You can bring you and your rich friends in here, and the salt of the earth will be nowhere to be found. If the salt of the earth is around you, that's because they'll be selling you a glass of champagne.
Remember how they announced the breaking of the ground at the Chase Center? They had Kevin Durant in the hard hat and dancing cranes, giant dancing cranes, which is a vision of some billionaires, I don't know, utopia that felt dystopia.
Joe Lacob is not the guy that's guilty about being filthy rich. He loves it. Coming up next, D'Angelo Russell coming back to L.A.
High Noon is brought to you Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. Nice view.
Oh, man, I don't really know where this is from. Oh, there we go. Oh, good luck explaining that to the homies at the crib, young lady. It works the same way. In fact, you want to know what male privilege is? They be putting that young lady on a Wheaties box, and she was a white man and had done that to those people.
That is correct. I love any clip that reminds me of a bad ninja movie. Like, come on, guys. Really couldn't cooperate a little bit better on that. But nonetheless, impressive. Very impressive.
Whoa!
Just.
Yeah.
But no one got hurt, so we can laugh.
I mean, even if they did. So I can laugh at anything, just not on TV. Quote, I love it here. My family loves it here. My wife loves it here, which is very important. My kids are Canadians. You want to win more? In my mind, I'm here. Since Raptors GM Masai Ujiri, Pablo, does Ujiri saying he will stay make you think that Kawhi Leonard will too?
This seems like a necessary condition for Kawhi staying, but not a sufficient condition. It feels like the pitch Masai is going to make is going to be built on trust. That, hey, the Clippers are going to say, You can win a championship here. We just did that. They're going to say they can handle your body like no one else can. Well, we just proved to you that we know exactly what you like, and we delivered that to you with no problem. So I think this is essential for him to stay, but it's Kawhi Leonard, man. I have no idea.
Yeah, I say people need to stop trying to figure out what a dude who doesn't talk is going to do. You have no idea what he's going to do. I want something for you to think about here. Uncle Dennis, right?
Yeah.
How much have you actually seen people write about who Uncle Dennis is or what Uncle Dennis does or what Uncle Dennis's background is? None of that. Why? Because we don't know nothing about these people, and we need to be real about the fact that we don't know about these people. Now, as for Ujiri staying in Toronto, they're in an interesting place here because if Kawhi were to leave, they can jumpstart this rebuild pretty quick because they got some big contracts and some older guys, and they can start moving them out of there and then get everything going in the future there. Because basically, if you're a GM, I think you got either one of two things you want. A team that right now can win a championship or a team that's starting all the way over. The Raptors are kind of sort of both at once.
Yes, and Masai Ujiri would be a departure that I think would be more backbreaking emotionally than Kawhi Leonard leaving. Masai has been Mr. Canada. He is the guy who was cursing out in front of fans when they were playing the Nets in Jurassic Park that one time. Jurassic Park is really his invention. The fact is, Masai Ujiri should absolutely be getting like many 8-figure offers from everybody, the same offers that the Wizards denied ever offering him, including ownership equity. But he is staying, and that means that this is a franchise that maybe hasn't just peaked.
I will say this about the idea of this being backbreaking because I know they wouldn't like it if he left. But just remember, some people root for players, not the general manager.
But this is the general manager who gets players.
No, that is true. I'm just saying, I think that people find a way to cope when the general manager goes away.
Next quote. The Lakers are now rooting for Kyrie Irving to land in Brooklyn, said Adrian Wojnarowski on the Woj and Low free agency special about a scenario where D'Angelo Russell could find his way back on the Lakers if the Nets get Kyrie and have to renounce their rights to Russell. So Bomani, does a reunion of Russell and the Lakers make sense to you?
First of all, shout out to Kyrie. Damn what I do to y'all, Irving, because all we've done since free agency started is talk about who probably doesn't want him that bad.
Everybody.
Yeah, now, as for the Lakers, I think Kyrie Irving is a distinctly and noticeably better player than D'Angelo Russell,
Agreed.
right? Like, I mean, it's hard for me to buy this idea that you would rather have D'Angelo Russell than Kyrie Irving, right? Like, I just can't get behind that. However, Russell will probably be cheaper. He will be younger, and I think there's a better chance that he'll figure out exactly how to navigate the LeBron-Anthony Davis situation. That being said, there's a reason why they got rid of him in the first place. And I don't know just how mature he's gotten just because he's become a better shooter.
Can we remember what it was like when D'Angelo Russell got in trouble for snap snitching on Nick Young? Because it was as if he had committed treason against the United States. It was as if he had said the most unsayable thing. It was as if he had violated the most sacred trust. And nobody, do you remember a single soul at the time saying, the Lakers should actually keep him because he can develop into a better prospect? Nobody said that. And so he had to leave. But the situation now seems to hinge, in terms of this news update, on the fact that it doesn't seem like Kyrie wants to go to the Lakers either. And so therefore, maybe D'Angelo is a pretty good consolation prize for that.
I don't know why people think Kyrie wants to go there. If he had a problem being LeBron's number 2 years ago, what makes you think he wants to be anybody's number 3 at this point, right? I'm stunned by this. I am guessing that Kyrie winds up going to the Nets. Like, we're hearing all this stuff that's going around there, but I still think that he's a guy that's going to want to go somewhere where he is the number 1 dude. I'm not even sure he's really trying to be paired up with Kevin Durant in that way, because he demonstrated to us he wants to be the number 1. It went bad in Boston, yes. I don't have any reason to believe that Kyrie sees how it went in Boston and says, maybe I shouldn't be the number 1. He's like, no, maybe I shouldn't be number 1 here.
And I don't even know if the Lakers, as constituted, need a number 3. They just need shooters. You have LeBron and Anthony Davis. Just get people like D'Angelo Russell at around 38% from 3 to actually space the floor for you.
But is D'Angelo Russell 38% from 3, or is that just what he did recently? Like, I'm not sure if it's one of those where he had a good shooting season or he has evolved into a good shooter.
His volume, like 8 threes per game last season.
Yeah, that's it.
Promising, but...
Coming up next, the NBA going to shorten the regular season?
Listen to the High Noon podcast and Bomani.
All right, we got people bouncing on a trampoline.
Yep.
This is just begging for, like, where the ambulance? Wow.
Yo!
Wow. Very, very impressive. And I got to say, Shout out to the kid doing all the flips. The rest of those kids are idiots.
No.
They were just begging to die.
No, mattress kid, though. The kid who threw the mattress, that kid might have the most crucial role in all this.
Yeah.
He prevented fatality.
I'm just saying, the other kids, you realize how close that came for like not one kid getting hurt, but like 3 just because y'all in the way?
I love trampolines, though. When was the last time you were on a trampoline?
But you live in New York. Where were you on this trampoline?
I was out in Long Island in the Hamptons on a trampoline. It was
2021, 22. Because that's when the NBA may institute bolder initiatives like reducing the 82-game regular season schedule, adding a mid-season cup and postseason play-in tournament. Pablo, did these changes sound like a good idea?
They sound like an improvement. They sound like an improvement in entertainment quality because maybe now we will get meaningful regular season action. But the question does remain. Are you going to get the superstars who load manage otherwise through the regular season to play in any of this action? And are you actually going to address the problem that a lot of these sports science people have been, trumpeting for a long time, which is injury? Because that seems to be the actual logic as to why they would make changes in the end.
Yeah, they're not shortening the regular season. You don't shorten a season by replacing games with games. All right, like if the idea is we're going to knock some games off the schedule and then put more games on, that is not shortening the regular season. What you're doing is you're throwing in some things that you hope some people might watch on television, right? Because the biggest problem with shortening the regular season is it cuts profits. And you're going to have to explain to these people where they're going to get the money back if they are cutting down on these home dates, if they're cutting down on these TV dates, all of that stuff. But I don't care about your little mid-season cup, right? We're not conditioned to buy into those things. The postseason play-in tournament, do you know how that works? Because I didn't really glean how that was supposed to work.
It would basically involve seeding hinging on competition. It would involve, I think, also theoretically draft position hinging on competition. Like they would actually incentivize teams to want to win games. Like it would address tanking, which to me, and you, by the way, you should want that too.
Yeah, but hold on. Think about this for a second. You're trying to go to one of these teams that is going to be somewhere in the draft, and you're saying the play-in will be so y'all can get the #1 pick. All right, fellas, let's get out here and let's go bust our keisters so they can get somebody to replace one of us. Who's buying in on that? Who's playing hard for that reason?
That is a fair point, except I do think a team could have a cohesive strategy that would be built around players that might actually be around next year, and those players might care about that stuff.
What about the other ones?
Well, those guys are probably out of the league anyway. Next number, 2023. Because that's when the Fair Pay to Play Act would become law, which if passed would allow college athletes to make money off their own names, images, and likenesses. But now NCAA President Mark Emmert warns that if the act does become law, California colleges would essentially be banned from championships. Bomani, how do you see this all playing out from here?
I honestly have no idea, because my belief has always been the changes that were going to involve paying players are going to have to go through the courts, because there was going to be no legislator that was going to be the person that would say shut down Texas football in the name of paying or something like that. Nobody would put their name on it. California a little bit different though, right? And this looks like this can pass through. And then if that happens, the NCAA has no choice but to say what they're saying right now, because otherwise their whole model falls apart. Are they really going to take the most populated state in the country, the linchpin of one of your 5 major conferences, and say y'all are out of here?
The most populated state in the country, the biggest economy in the country by far. They would be 5th in the world in terms of economic size if they were to go secede. California is better suited than any other state to say, we could just do this on our own. Like, we can organize our own tournaments, we can organize our own playoffs, we could organize all sorts of events in which our players get paid and they get to profit. And that, to me, it is an existential threat to the NCAA, because they would get lots of players that are great. They would also actually defy the entire concept of what the NCAA is about.
But the problem with your idea there of these tournaments, who's playing in them?
All the schools in California.
How many of those do you give a damn about?
Well,
right, there are 4 schools in California that are in the Pac-10, right?
Yep.
And then you start lumping in Pac-12, rather. You start lumping in like the Mountain West conferences and stuff like that. Okay, cool. Is that something that people are actually going to want to watch? My guess is no.
So that is a fair guess, but my bet is that if you can actually create a compelling alternative, right, in which you maybe cut out the middleman of the NCAA, because the NCAA does what? They organize stuff and provide clearinghouses for like academic credibility. If you don't need that, maybe other states would actually join California. In closing, Bomani, you've been away from New York City these last couple days, and so I wanted to show you what you actually missed. This is Union Square.
In Union Square? Like, this ain't even hood.
Nope. This is 14th Street.
Yo, why is Brian Windhorst out here fighting somebody?
First off,
he's ready.
I believe that's Filipino Brian Windhorst to you because I've been zooming in on him. He does seem to have the feeling of
Akron go hard. The old buddy from Onyx is not really doing the work that I thought he might.
But this does resemble the Mayweather-Pacquiao that I truly dreamed of because this dude...
Hold on. The Salmon Slammer is in a lot better shape than I expected him to be.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a cardiovascular workout there.
And normally, I would say always bet on the guy wearing blue jeans in athletic competition because that guy has seen some things. But Mr. Button-Down Salmon short-sleeve shirt, he clearly has brought more to the table than I thought.
I'm also kind of looking out here at this crowd. It's a little difficult for me to tell back here, but I feel like I know who's rooting for who.
Yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't be watching that in that crowd myself.
And meanwhile, the cops are just like, yep, nothing to see here. Go ahead.
I don't know who they're rooting for, but I know who they're rooting against. In closing, I'm here for adults humbling the youth on the basketball courts. Come on, Marcus Smart. This is just cruel. I'm guessing this is like a basketball camp of some sort. Maybe this kid was like mouthing off, but you ain't got to do all that.
Whoa!
Right. Oh, man.
Jam got him?
Come on. Hey, look, this is the part, though.
Oh,
right
no.
here. Hey, point at him, and then he go and celebrate with the other kids. This just feels so unnecessary.
Wow. And yet, very on brand if you seem to attend Marcus Smart's basketball camp. Like, this does feel like what Marcus Smart would want to do to you.
No, I would think that, like, why doesn't Marcus Smart stand there and, like, take charges from the kids, right? Because that's what that's the biggest thing that he provides, really. He's a great charge taker. Why not do that? And I tell you why he don't do that. Kid's too uncoordinated. They'll hit him in his gonads.
Gonads.
And honestly,
striking.
I'm surprised that kid right now didn't get up and hit him in the gonads.
That would be an issue. That's fair.
I mean, he disrespected him in front of all his homies. Come on, man. Howdy,